Hey everybody, welcome to the One Amazing Life podcast. My name is Chris Stewart. I am your co-host for this show, as every show. And once again, this is a podcast for teens and by teens. And this week, it's going to be the best episode yet. We're talking about parents. What is the relationship between teenagers and parents? As always, I have my main man, my best friend, and my co-host. His name is...
I am Jamie, and I just want to bring us right back to the Beastie Boys. Parents, they just don't understand. I don't know if any of our high school people are going to remember that, but as a fourth grade kid, I remember calling into a radio station and asking them to play that song. That was the one I wanted played because, man, as a fourth grader, I already knew that my parents just didn't understand. Today, Chris, I hope we're going to help bring some understanding to high school people as well as to parents, maybe.
You know, I love that, Jimmy. It's like, let's be honest, man. There's so many different references from kids to saying parents just don't understand. My personal one, right, was what was that show called? The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. You remember that with Will Smith?
Oh, yes.
And he would have, like, that would be the lyrics in his little thing before every show. He's like, man, parents just don't understand, right? Jimmy, before we go any farther, why don't we interview and actually introduce our amazing guests that we have on the show today, because we got three firecrackers today. Well, I'll tell you, we're going to go deep. This is going to be a great show.
Hi, my name's Abby. I'm 14 and I'm a freshman.
Sweet. And Abby, what is your favorite TV show right now?
My favorite TV show right now? Well, I just finished On My Block. The season finale kind of made me sad, but they might come out with a season 4, so that's really exciting.
Okay, cool. There you go. All right, and next we are going to go with our male introduction today. We're going straight out of here. Let's go. From Southern California, his name is...
Christian. I am 17 and I'm a junior at Santa Fe Christian.
Sweet. Is that cool that, like, your first name and your high school name, like, are the same? So, like, it all sounds like you're royalty.
I mean, now it's just kind of normal because I've had that for the last 12 years or so. But I guess it's cool.
Right? I think it's cool, man. Okay, and last but not least, we have...
I'm Jessie. I am a sophomore at Santa Fe Christian.
Awesome. And Jessie, what's an interesting fact about you that our listeners might not know?
My mom works at Santa Fe.
Oh, so your mom works at your school?
Yeah.
How's that work out?
It's pretty interesting because she's not a teacher or anything, but she does work on campus. And so, like, I go to her office and, like, she just takes my lunch with her so that she can put it in the fridge there if it needs to stay cold. Or, like, if I need to go somewhere after school, she can drive me there quickly and I just go to school with her.
So, Jessie, let's start with you then. Let's just jump right in. On a scale of 1 to 10, what's your relationship with your parents?
I'd say a good, like, 9.5.
Whew.
Wow.
9.5.
9.5, Jessie. That's impressive.
That seems unprecedented. Jessie, give us the criteria for achieving a 9 to a 9.5 on the parent scale, please.
It's mostly just, like, understand, like, most of the rules they have, why they're there, why I have to follow them. And also, I've just been really close with my parents for a long time. Like, when I was in kindergarten, my mom had cancer. And so it kind of started then. That's when we got really close. And also, my mom and I both have birds. My dad and I both really like to play volleyball sometimes, like when we're out camping, just stuff like that.
That's amazing. Now, what kind of birds do you and your mom share? For our listeners who don't know, what's the species that you guys like to have?
So I have a blue Indian ringneck that was rehomed to us. His name is Bluey. And my mom has a Jardines parrot, which we got at the bird store when she was just a baby.
Oh, I love that. I love that story of building it together. You know, what was it like having a mom that had cancer at that young age?
Well, I didn't really understand what it meant because I was so young. I just knew that it was bad and that she was sick, and it was a really bad sickness because in chemotherapy, you lose all your hair. And so suddenly my mom had no hair. And so we made light of it because we didn't really want to be like tied down by it. We didn't really want to be really bummed out. And so at the time we were watching the show Avatar: The Last Airbender, and the main character Aang, he's bald and he has a tattoo of this big blue arrow. And so we used MS Paint to take a picture of my mom, put it in MS Paint, and then we gave her a big blue arrow on her forehead to just kind of, make light of it, didn't want to get too upset with it. And chemotherapy, it really is just terrible to go through and to witness. And so I just, I understood I had to be there for my mom. I had to, be there for her and just try and make her happy.
No, I love that. I think that's great. Did you put a blue arrow on your head too?
No, because I wasn't really in that picture.
I was just curious. I didn't know how far we were going to go with the support. You know what I mean? No, I love that. And I think that's great. And I think that really kind of impresses upon me, at least, the fact of that sometimes, a lot of times, we don't maybe get close to our parents until we kind of go through a kind of a hardship. And sometimes that even parallels our relationship with God, right? Where we kind of just have this relationship that we don't really understand until times get tough. So thanks for sharing about that. I know it was a lot of personal information. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Abby, what about you? On a scale of 1 to 10, where would you say your relationship is with your parents today?
Well, I have 3 parents. I consider my stepdad my parent. So because my parents got divorced when I was like 10, I'd say. I don't know, somewhere around there. I think it's been like 45 years. I don't know, somewhere around there. So I have a stepdad, my mom, and my dad. And I think my relationship with each of them is different. I'd rate it like, I love them all. And on like a scale of 1 to 10, right? For all of them, or like individually. Because like I go to them for advice and stuff about like different things. And like my relationship with all of them is a lot different. I don't really see my dad a lot because like I only see him over like holidays and stuff. So I spend a majority of my time with my mom and my stepdad.
Let's go with mom and stepdad then. What would you say their relationship is?
Oh, I'd say like it's like a really solid like 8, 9.
Wow, that's pretty high. Jamie, are you surprised at these high numbers right now?
I am. I also want to point out that, we know that the parents are going to watch the show. So, there's some intelligence to not saying, hey, it's like a 2. Yeah. It's like, right now it's a 2. Maybe like a strong 2, but it's a 2. Like I know that there's a little reality to that there's some wisdom in not going too crazy. But maybe Abby, maybe I'll ask this question. What is the number one thing that you get into conflict at your house with your parents? Like, what issues do you typically get into conflict with your parents about?
Yeah, mostly school is like a really big conflict sometimes. Like they push me, which is really good. But just like in the moment, sometimes it's hard for me to accept that.
And Abby, what would you say has been like one of the hardest things you've had to go through in your life with your parents? Like, what about the divorce?
Okay, so yeah, that was really tough going through that. I think I kind of made myself like numb to the whole situation and I wouldn't tell anybody how I felt. And yeah, that was like pretty tough. Yeah, so like my relationship with like my parents during that time, it was kind of hard because like I'd be put in the middle a lot. And so like I wouldn't really like know whose like side to take kind of. So I kind of just kept it to myself. I mean, I had like a therapist, but
yeah. Now, what advice would you give for other kids maybe that are going through that right now, since you've been through it and had a little while to process it now? Because it's a tough thing. I mean, and I appreciate you being honest and vulnerable
of course.
All of our listeners on the show today talking about this, because this is really courageous of you. But what's some, maybe you could give some advice for other kids going through it that are dealing with their parents in this situation?
I'd say that it's going to get better. Nothing lasts like forever. So there's like a light at the end of the tunnel. Everything will settle down, even though like the emotions might be kind of like heated in the moment. And like eventually everybody will make amends, even though they might not be on the best terms. They'll like, not only you will begin to like reflect on everything, but like your parents and like everybody involved, like your family, everything, like they'll calm down. Like it'll get better.
Yeah. No, I love that's great advice. That's great. Christian, let's find out what's going on with you, man. What would you say your relationship is on a scale of 1 to 10 with your parents?
Well, the worst thing about going last is now it looks like I'm copying everyone, but I mean, honestly, I'd say it's about an 8 or a 9, something like that, around there. It's pretty solid.
Okay. And what would you rate that on? Like, what's the criteria for that?
Just being able to be I think a comfort level for me to be able to go to them. And also, I feel like they know me pretty well. I know them pretty well. I feel like there's never really like, I'm scared to go talk to them about anything, or I'd say like, I don't know how to put this. More so like, it's just like, they're just kind of there. And then it's like, not really like uncomfortable by it. Like they're my parents and I'm comfortable with them. So I'd say about an 8 or a 9.
I like that. Now, Christian, I want to ask you a question, being the male on our board today. What is it like between you and your dad? Because I know that a lot of fathers and son relationships, they either kind of go one way or the other. Either you guys are best friends, or else there's a lot of, I don't want to say conflict, but just you don't really see eye to eye and things like that. How would you describe your relationship kind of specifically with your dad and how it's kind of evolved over the years?
Well, I think for sure that I have a stronger relationship with my dad just because I've spent more time with him, especially through like all of the baseball tournaments and everything. And I feel like, I'm not going to say like, oh, he's like my best friend or stuff, but I 100% feel more comfortable with him than I do with my mom, especially. And I also think with having a father-son relationship, it allows the son to be able to see what a Christian man looks like and what a leader of the house looks like. And I think it's just a good role model for me. And so I think that's a good relationship. And he's very easy to relate to, especially going through a lot of the same things that he used to go through.
No, that's great. That's a great answer. Thank you. What would you say is the biggest struggle with your dad?
This is kind of like a stupid issue. It's with both of my parents. It's just curfew stuff, like getting home at like a certain time and stop hanging out with my friends and being home for dinner. So I think that's to be honest, that's like the only issue I really have that I can really think of.
Christian, do you think that curfew should be based on merit? Meaning that like, as long as you get good grades and you are like a well-behaved child, that like the time should get later and later as you go on in life?
I think that there's some times where they want me home for like dinner for like the entire family. But my point is, and I always say this to them, I say like, I could be drinking and doing drugs, but like every time I come home, I'm completely fine and I'm totally sober and everything. And then I say, that's my point. Like, I'm not doing anything. I'm just being with my friends. So that's always my point. And I think it should be based off of that, my decision making. And I've come home completely fine every single time. So I think it should be based off of that.
Let me interject here because I have a little tip that worked for me in high school with curfew.
Yeah, let's hear it, Jamie.
I'm gonna throw this out here. My brother taught it to me. So, my brother and I were out. We looked at our clocks. We were hanging out with friends. We weren't doing it kind of like Christian. We weren't doing anything, that was all that bad. But we were past curfew. We were actually about 45 minutes past curfew, which that's noticeable. Your parents aren't just gonna be like, oh, you're 5 minutes late. We were like getting closer to an hour past curfew. And my brother just looked at me as we're walking into the house and he said, follow my lead. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, just copy whatever I'm doing. And so we open the door. Sure enough, my mom's like right there. And she sees us come in and my brother just starts laughing, like super loud. And then I start laughing because I was copying him. And we just start laughing back and forth, and he's like patting me on the shoulder, and my mom started to get really excited. She's like, "What are you guys laughing about?" My brother said, "Oh man, we just had the best time. Like it was so much fun. All of our friends were there." And then my mom got all excited about it, and she just lost track of the fact that we were 45 minutes late because she was just happy that we were safe and that we had a great time, and it totally worked. So I'm not saying it works every time. Your parents might be a little bit more attentive to the clock than mine, but that's just one little trick. If you're coming back past curfew, just let your parents know you had a great time. Sometimes we'll come back past curfew and we're just upset that we're gonna get in trouble for it, and we bring the negativity in the door rather than bringing the positivity in the door. Sometimes when you lead with the positivity, the parents will just go along for it. So give that one a shot.
I may have to try it, but it may be a little difficult, especially with my brother at college.
That's true. Maybe get on a phone call with a friend and walk in the door and just be like, "Oh man, that was so much fun. I'm glad we can hang out or whatever," and see if that one works for you.
Yeah, maybe just completely ignore them, just be on the phone and walk upstairs.
All right. Hey, there you go. Any other tricks on curfew maybe from Jessie or Abby?
I've never really had a problem with being out past curfew because I usually just do online stuff with my friends. So I've got nothing. That's
a tip right there. Just keep the whole thing to the online deal, and then curfew. Who cares, right? It could be 4 a.m. and you're still hanging out with friends. Yeah. What about you, Abby?
I can't really drive, so like my parents pick me up, so they kind of control when I leave. But I mean, I guess you could always play that trick where like you kind of like send your friends' parents to like the door and you try to get them to like talk to your parents. I don't know.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I love that trick. You get the parents talking and then they're enjoying their time and you get more time with your friends.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Chris, I told you these are some smart people we have here.
Oh, I know it, man. These guys are definitely the creme of the creme of the good parent stuff. So I like that, what we're talking about today. This is a great show so far. Abby, I want to jump in with you. What's one thing that you want all parents to know about teenagers? Like, speak for your entire generation of people that like maybe you feel like that you're misunderstood in a certain way. What would be something that you would really like parents to know about your generation?
I think parents should trust their teenagers until their teenagers give them a reason not to trust them. But, you know, you got to like, if you don't, like what Christian was saying, like if you don't have any reason like to not trust your kids are going to need to grow up, you know? You got to like facilitate it, but let them make their own mistakes and then they can learn from it.
No, I think that's great. And I want to do a follow-up question with you real quick, Gabby, because this just came to me. But what is going on with the amount of pressure on studies, right? Like on your academics. You know, I work with a lot of kids and in a lot of different youth groups and leadership groups and things like that across the country with teenagers. And the academics seem to always just be wearing kids down now. And I understand, obviously, you have to learn. You're there to learn. But can you tell us from your perspective, like, especially between the parents and student thing, like what's really going on with all those academics, man? From a kid's point of view, what does it look like?
I think I'm really lucky. I have really understanding parents. They don't really care as much as what the final grade is, but rather that I put everything that I could into it. And like, I did everything that I could to prepare for it. And like the final grade is the final grade. You can't do anything about it. Just like, they just encouraged me to like know that I tried my hardest, so then I'd be satisfied with what I got. Because if you put everything into it, if you're going to do something, you might as well like do it to the fullest potential that you can do it.
Another great answer. Christian, what about you, man? Like, what's the dynamic that parents should know about student athletes? I know you love to play sports and, you know, obviously you have to keep your grades up for that, but what's one thing that maybe you could like speak for your generation about what parents should know about that situation?
Well, I think my parents are especially very understanding, and I've never felt pressures academically from them. But I think just to understand how much like the schedule of it goes on, where you have to wake up in the morning early to go do something, say, or you have after school, and then there's obviously that time gap where it's like a certain like a dedicated time for me to do homework, and I think it's difficult for that to be able to do that all in one day. But I mean, for me, I mean, I've never had an issue with that. And I don't think there's really that much to understand. I feel like it's pretty straightforward. Like, yeah, practicing at homework. And I think the parents will sometimes, I think the issues will stem out of, oh, I want to talk to my friends, or, oh, I want to do this, or I want to take a nap, instead of you got to do your homework because you got to do it because that's your set time of the day to do it. And I think maybe sometimes parents can be a little bit strict about that and when to do your homework or so. But I mean, all in all, I think they're pretty understanding. I don't think there's much of a difference between the life of a student athlete from back then to today.
Perfect. Thank you. And Jessie, I want to jump right in with you too, because you are on the other side of that where you are a student musician, right? Like, so you play in the band and things like that. And you probably have to travel some and there's a lot of practice. So what's that like? What do you want parents to know about student musicians and things like that, and what that demands of you, and some things that might help you?
I guess mostly patience with like maybe not remembering to practice sometimes, like remind us, but don't kind of be like, all right, I'm never going to remind you ever again, because they're going to remind you again. My parents, they've said, oh, I'm never going to remind you again. And then like turned around and reminded me to practice. And like, also, just be supportive, because, like, even if we don't start out like the best player in the world, it's like, my parents are pretty supportive, and like, just be supportive. If the kid doesn't want to do band, don't force them to do band, because then that might cause them to try and be bad on purpose to like get back at their parents, maybe for making them do band, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That makes total sense.
I got to jump in about band here, because when I was a kid, I played trumpet, and I wasn't very good when I started. And so my parents, they had one rule with it. They're like, you can practice, but you're going to practice outside. So I had my little folding chair and my little portable music stand, and I'd go out in the backyard and put that thing up and start playing my scales to learn how to play trumpet. So, yeah, my parents were understanding, but they also understood how much volume being a musician can have in a house.
Now, Jamie, did that create an animosity between you and the local wildlife? I mean, was there like a lot of weird birds coming in, like mating calls, things like that happening?
All the neighborhood dogs were howling. It was great. You know what was funny is it actually did the opposite. There was some camaraderie, because I remember playing and then hearing a note that came out of nowhere. I'm like, what is that? And then I played a note, and then a similar note was played, but it sounded like it was coming from a distance. So I went over and crawled up the fence, and I looked in the backyard, and there was my neighbor, who was a little bit older than me, and he was doing the exact same thing. His parents had kicked him out of the house. He was in the backyard playing his trumpet, and we didn't even say anything. We just looked at each other and shook our heads, saying like, yep, I know exactly what it's like. So apparently kicking your brass players to the outdoors is a popular thing, or at least it was back then.
Wow. That's some great advice, Jamie. Thank you. So like, for all you parents that are suffering from your child's lack of skills in their musician department, just toss them out in the backyard, man. Let everybody else deal with it. We're going to see like people playing recorders now out on the front porch everywhere. It's going to be crazy, man.
There you go.
That's awesome. Well, before we kind of wrap up the show today, too, I also want to give you guys a place to speak about your relationship with your parents, especially. But Abby, what's one thing that you want your parents to know about them that you have really appreciated over the years?
I really appreciate how my parents give me really good advice, and they always really know what to say in the situation, and they're really understanding, and they're just really awesome, and I love them a lot.
That's awesome. Jessie, what's one thing that you would want your parents to know?
Just like, I'm grateful for all the love they've given over the years, and like how much patience they have. Like when I'm trying to figure something out, they don't get mad at me if I don't figure it out right away, but they also don't like just give me the answer. They let me learn it, and they let me learn something along the way as well. And like, they're really good at parenting, because my sister, she's deaf. And so they raised her, and then they raised her as well as me and my brother. So they had a lot going on, at least earlier on, when my sister was still living at home, as well as my brother. They just had a lot going on, and they just did a really great job.
Wow. That is amazing. What a great example of unconditional love. Jessie, I want to ask you one more question while I have you here on. What characteristic do you think it is that makes your parents able to do this? Does that make sense, that question?
Mm-hmm.
Like what characteristic do you think your parents have that makes them able to do this in such a high regard?
I would say adaptability. Like they're able to kind of see a situation, kind of think about it a bit, and then be like, okay, this is how I should probably handle this.
No, I think so. I mean, we've obviously heard a lot of situations that have come up, a lot of challenges in your family, and all have been dealt with. So That's great. And I love to see the fact that your mom's still active in your school as well, besides having all those things. I think that's just great. Christian, what about you? What's something that you want your parents to know from your side of the, like, an impact that they've made in your life that maybe they didn't know? Just besides, I mean, obviously they love you and things like that, but what's one thing that really kind of has changed your dynamic as a human being because of them?
They have never put pressure on me, and then they've always been so supportive. I mean, especially it's really relevant from this past year, where I was playing baseball all the time, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I said, you know what, I'm going to do theater. And I mean, I could have gone and done baseball in college. I mean, I still could, but the fact that I decided to do that, and they said, okay, do what makes you happy. And they didn't have an issue with that. They said, do what you want to do, what makes you happy. As long as you're going to all they said was, as long as you're going to put hard work into it, which, I mean, that's not hard. So, I mean, the fact that I'm able to adjust and how they're allowing me to try new things, which, I mean, I really did enjoy my time doing that. And I appreciate that I had no pressures in that transition going from the sports to the theater. I thought that was really impactful on myself, because, I mean, I never had an issue with that.
Yeah. No, I think that's amazing. That's really supportive. Kristen, while I have you here too, I'm going to ask you one more question too, is what advice would you give to kids that are maybe having a hard time connecting with their parents from a peer to peer?
Find something to relate to. I think something like that. I mean, try to, I don't know, maybe share your feelings more so, and try to give a perspective of what you're dealing with, and not so much how they can interpret your situation. I think more so if you express yourself and you show why so you feel a certain way, or why you want to do something and what benefit you'll get out of it. I think that, and also just connecting with them and showing them and trying to be able to get on the same page, and so you both can understand each other and both of your point of views.
Yeah, that's great. That's great advice, man. You're on point. Jamie, well, before we end it all on something, what's one thing that your parents have really instilled in you over the years that was a big game changer for you?
You know, my parents have given me a long time. I mean, there's a million things, but they've given me kind of, because both my mom and my dad kind of approached me with two different ways of kind of parenting and supporting me. And even right before I took my first job in ministry, my dad was a pastor. And so my mom spent her life being a pastor's wife. So they really understood the field of work that I was going to go into. And they sat me down. We were actually at a restaurant. And my mom sat there and was like, ministry's hard. She's like, it's going to take a lot of your emotional, it's going to take an emotional toll on you. It's really difficult. She was giving me like all the warnings of ministry, which was really like a powerful thing to hear. She was giving it to me straight up. She wasn't pulling any punches. She wasn't, saying, you're going to do it. It's going to be great. Everything's perfect. She was telling me like the truth. And sometimes you need someone who's going to tell you the truth, and parents are great for that. And then my dad came up to me right after that and kind of leaned in and whispered in my ear, and he said, go get him. That's kind of all he said. He kind of gave me the old go get him in his own way. He said, just go out there and give it your all. And so being able to get two perspectives is amazing. And so even for people out there, Abby, like you're saying, you've got 3 parents you're dealing with. I know folks who have 4 and 5 parents that they deal with, because that's just the way things are. And so there's a little bit of joy in being able to hear all that diversity of wisdom from these people. So that's something that I've been able to learn. And man, I love my mom and my dad. Even though my dad's no longer with us, he still's teaching me things.
I love it, man. That is great. Well, listen, I just want to thank all of our guests for coming on the show, Abby and Jessie and Christian, man. You guys had a great show today. Thanks so much for being honest and giving us your opinions, man. You guys really nailed it out of the park. Well, that wraps up our show for this week. Thanks, everybody, again, for tuning into the One Amazing Life podcast. We will see you again all next week. Have a safe week. God bless.